Welcome back, One Love family. It's your boy Seth Guru Baxter with Maker's Bar and the Seth Guru Podcast. I am beyond compare in my person that I have as our special guest. But before that, I want to let you know Maker's Bar is in the habit of creating 1 million leaders today for tomorrow. This is one of those leaders in music, in artistry, vibe, swag, and God's blessing. I have been just digging her vibe and her song style and trying to show her to everyone that I can, even to the point of giving her a title. This is the Princess Songstress, Mayia Warren. Mayia, I am so glad to have you here with us today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Seth.
It's absolutely our pleasure. I got to tell you, as I mentioned in the intro, once I saw one of your performances and you were singing, you had an immediate spiritual radiation, and I knew that you were connecting to the people, and it was just so obvious, not only by the comments, but also what I felt immediately. So I thank you for the gift of allowing yourself to be used as a vessel.
Yeah, thank you. It's been an interesting journey for sure, and I'm just glad to be a part of the ride.
Fantastic. Tell me, where do you hail from? Where are you at right now?
Yeah, so I am in Raleigh, North Carolina.
Raleigh, North Carolina. Oh, I have some family down there too. You're probably part of it.
We shall see.
Yes, indeed. So Raleigh, North Carolina. So tell me about your background and your upbringing.
Yeah, so my background is pretty lengthy. I'm 28 years old, but I will try to give you the short of the long of it, so to speak. So I was born in Clarksville, Tennessee. And when I was an infant, my biological parents moved to North Carolina. So North Carolina is all I've ever known, even though I wasn't born here. And unfortunately, navigated a lot of childhood trauma because, my parents had things that they didn't deal with in their life. And they kind of took it out on my brother and I.
Oh, wow.
So, hurt people, especially when you don't deal with those things. And so around my childhood, I also didn't know that I was legally blind. So I dealt with a lot of frustrations in that realm of things. And I have albinism.
Oh, Mayia, do you mind if I go back? You're legally blind?
Yes.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's go. Okay.
Yeah. So I'm legally blind as a result of my condition, albinism, which means I have no pigment in my eyes, hair, and skin. So as you can imagine, growing up in a Black household, that was a different aspect as well. So you got all these different complex layers wrapped into one. And so later on, I would go on to experience sexual abuse at the hands of my father, which would later cause my brother and I to end up in foster care. And so foster care happens around middle school. And like I said, a culmination of a lot of events, a lot of heavy themes in my story. And right around that time, I encounter several teachers who began to pour into me during my 7th/8th grade year of middle school. And through that, I began to develop a passion for advocating for folks like myself that have disabilities and albinism. And so I hated people and I wasn't too fond of myself, but for whatever reason, I felt an inclination to serve people. And so as years go on, the common thread throughout my story is that art and creativity was always there. So as I'm navigating things throughout my childhood, music and writing and art, visual art, were my forms of therapy, the ways that I coped, my outlet, my ways of expressing myself. So fast forward to college. Now I've, been trained in jazz guitar, serving on a worship team. And I'm getting my degree in kinesiology, which is the precursor to physical therapy. So around this time, my body's beginning to really take its toll. I have multiple invisible disabilities and chronic conditions. And it was getting to a point where I was like, I don't think God wants me to pursue getting my graduate degree. Something about this isn't adding up. And I was also developing more energy and passion for communication, creating content, and things of that nature. And so, lo and behold, I prayed about it, and that's what I felt. And I talked to my mentors, and they were like, "Yeah, do what God said." And so that was God had called me to go into disability advocacy full time. Which, for those who don't know, there was not a career path. It wasn't a trendy thing at the time. And so I'm really like stepping out on faith in so many ways and trusting God. All right, this is what you said. There's no certainty with this. And so I began to serve, continued to do speaking engagements, and then started getting more opportunities for keynote speaking engagements, and consulting with companies like Lowe's, Home Improvement, Ally Bank, different municipalities. Mentoring, community engagement, volunteering, and outreach is a huge part of my story. And it's been a common thread throughout my life. I've been serving my community since like the age of 5. And so all those things converge. And then those same mentors that I deferred to when I was making that decision about which route to take, took me in, and they adopted me, spiritually, so to speak. And it was in that first year of living with them in 2022, I began to get even more inspiration in songs, because now I'm learning how to trust God in a new way and trust people in a new way. And for me, whenever I'm learning lessons or encountering different experiences, I can't help but get inspired to express that through art and music. And so that ended up being the culmination of my first album. Was not on social media, did not promote it at all. I kind of thought it was just a standalone thing. I'm like, oh, that's nice. And then I went about my way. 2023 came, and I felt like God was calling me to tell my story through music up until that point, which was very challenging because there were a lot of themes in my story that I did not confront until I started writing, right? And so when I get an instrumental, typically I allow the instrumental to speak for itself, so to speak. So like, what is the tone? What kind of instrumentation is involved? And a lot of times that will evoke an emotion or remembrance of an experience, and God will just inspire me from there. And so a lot of what I got inspired by was like, ooh, like I feel like I'm supposed to go in this direction and talk about feeling abandoned by my parents, but I haven't even processed that behind closed doors, but yet God is leading me to express that. And so it was a lot of like processing it, and then honestly being bold and like tapping into courage to like put that out. And so December of 2023, I was fundraising for my album release event, and within 3 days, the full amount was raised.
What was the name of the album, Maya? What was the name of that album?
Becoming Mayia. So that second project was called Becoming Mayia. The first project was called Out of My Own Way. And it was December 2023 when I felt the call to step into music, as a form of having an impact, and creating change, and also sharing my story. So I've been an artist officially for 2 years and some change. So yeah, that's just the short of the long of it.
Well, I got to tell you, if you don't mind, we can circle back to a couple of those points that stood out to me.
Yeah.
Your legal blindness, how does that affect your everyday life as far as your vision? Just so we can understand, get somewhat of a grasp of that.
Yeah. I tell people that the world is more 2D than 3D for me. People look like blobs. I recognize things by shape, color, and things of that nature. And when it comes to like people, the longer I'm around you, the more my brain fills in information. Like even for you right now, I can't actually see your face very much, but there are 2 circular shadows, in the shape of where your head is, that's telling me you're wearing glasses. So things of that kind of nature give me certain cues. You kind of recognize certain patterns. And I do have, I do have orientation and mobility training, which is what you're given when you go through vocational rehabilitation services for the blind. They teach you how to use a white cane. So that you can navigate independently and also know how to travel independently, how to go with the flow of traffic, use your ears to compensate for your eyes and learn the tricks of the trade and taking public transportation and things of that nature. So light greatly impacts my vision. So too much of it or none of it impacts it just as much as, you know, how long I'm on screens. I could tend to get eye fatigue a lot quicker than most folks do. So it definitely impacts how I navigate the world, but I'm still able to navigate the world. It's just very different from how everyone else probably views what their surroundings.
Now, does this prohibit you from driving a vehicle? Those types of
Yes,
daily?
I
Okay.
cannot drive. So a lot of times, uh, and here's the independent artist aspect that for me is a little different. Like for me to go anywhere, it costs quite a considerable amount. So in the same way, it would cost you gas, car insurance, maintenance. Like there's an additional cost for me as someone who's legally blind, in that it's expensive to take Uber. It's expensive to take public transportation. It's expensive to fly. It's expensive to take a train. And so there's a cost associated everywhere I go. So even when I'm doing things in kind or out of service, there is much more of a cost to me than it will ever be to whoever I'm serving.
So this is due to the blindness as an
Yeah.
issue.
Yep.
Yeah. And I'm very curious, how was that effectual to you while you were going through school?
Yeah. So for those who don't know, there are these individuals that get trained called TVIs, which are called teachers for the visually impaired. And so what they do is they go through college and they go through state training to learn how to, one, help children and students that have legal blindness, vision impairment, or deaf blindness, um, assist them with their learning, maybe academic skills, maybe how to use assistive technology. And I'm trying to look for it. I don't have it on my desk because I was using it earlier, but I have like several devices that I use on a regular basis that I got trained in like preschool on how to use, that my life would probably be greatly impacted if I didn't have these devices. One of them is a monocular, and it's basically like how it sounds, one half of a pair of binoculars, and I use it to see long distances. When I was in school, predominantly to see like the whiteboard or the chalkboard, um, things of like that nature. Now I use it to like do street signs or road signs. Certain details, because you never know what you might need to see when you're traveling. Um, on the off chance that I forget it, I've had to learn the art of asking for help. Another device that I used, I don't have it anymore. They're very expensive, but it's called a CCTV. And basically, if you think of maybe a device the size of a 27-inch computer monitor, and then there's kind of like a bed underneath with a camera overlooking that bed, and you could put your textbooks underneath it, and you can press a button and it would magnify it times 5, 10, 15, 20. But it can also change like the contrast. So when you're legally blind or have low vision, everybody has certain contrast affinities that help you see details better. And so for me, black background with white letters has always been my go-to. So my phone stays on dark mode, and all the text on my phone is large print for that reason. I have friends who see better with a yellow background and blue letters. So everybody's different when you have a particular eye condition. It's just a matter of figuring out what works for you. And so in my K through 12 years, I was able to kind of adapt any piece of technology that I got to meet my needs. And I got very good at recognizing that pretty early on.
That's just one of the obstacles that you overcame towards your music career. I can't tell you enough how I appreciate that, because I did have a small, there used to be an organization, talk about back in the day, reading. We had radio shows for the blind or visually impaired.
Oh,
and
wow.
we had to go through course. Yes, and I did that for about 5 months, and in understanding how to see how those who are visually impaired see, that have some vision left and so forth, and
Hmm.
why that was significant to how we read was significantly important. But that being one challenge for you, then the other challenge of albinoism. So talking about some of your challenges and where you're at today, the
Yeah.
albinoism with that, how was that impactful?
So with albinism, I think everybody's different. Let me preface that albinism affects all nationalities of humans, but it's also found in plants and animals as well. Um, but for me specifically, most of my challenges related to albinism were internal. So because nobody told me what I had, I actually had to find out for myself, and I found out in middle school. And so
Oh, so your parents didn't find this out. You had to check it out.
nobody told me, no doctors explained it to me. And I think that's been a big theme in my story. Like, because a lot of things weren't explained to me. The flip side of that, I've become passionate about walking alongside other people and discipling them and teaching them, step by step, because I recognize the value of doing that, right? Having the grace and the patience so that people can understand maybe what they're walking through or what they're navigating. And
Yeah.
so in middle school, yeah, I got really frustrated. And so I started Googling. I don't even remember what I Googled entirely, but I was on the middle school computer and it came up albinism. And then I was like, oh my gosh, I have this thing. Um, and so I would later go on to eye doctor appointments. I'm like, I heard I have this condition. They're like, oh yeah, you do. And in my mind, I'm like, well, why didn't you tell me that? But that kind of sparked a fire in me. Like, well, I don't want anyone else to go through feeling like there's questions that they have about who they are in their identity, but the people in your life that's supposed to confirm that or affirm that do not. And I think for me, a big part of my journey has just been recognizing that I was built different on purpose. When there's a lot of things left to chance, you kind of formulate your own conclusions about why you are made the way that you are. And so for me,
Oh, wow.
much of my upbringing, I thought I was a mistake,
Mm.
right? And so because of that, I had to learn, and my faith is a big piece of that. Coming to terms and recognizing that I'm built different. And so for me, I did deal with some teasing, some bullying here and there, in times where I've had to put people in their place or correct peers and things of that nature. But the most like detrimental thing I experienced was like the lies that I believed about who I was and
Mm.
why I navigate the world that I do. And so, yeah, that's what I would say. And even as an advocate, when parents, especially of like newborns with albinism, reach out to me, or maybe they have a teen with albinism who's really struggling, like I find that it's that common theme. Like instead of being in an environment where you are raised to believe that because you appear different and look different, your challenges that come with it don't make you deficient. That you're just different, right? And everybody's different in some way, shape, or form. Um, but that's often not the messaging that you're cultivated in. And so, for me, God and His mercy kind of helped cultivate that in the context of my faith, and then later on in young adulthood in the context of community. So yeah.
This is heroism, heroism, heroism in its purest form. The amount of obstacles you had to overcome, and
Mhm.
in the midst of that, to me, it sounds like faith was a big part of that. We have so many areas to cover. I feel that in talking to you, I'm just so inspired, and I want young women and young boys actually to be inspired by a story of overcoming. So with that, your spiritual journey had to be a part of that. And even before that, being a woman of color, your parents, how did you and your parents navigate being a woman of color who has albinism Was that impactful? And this could be how, in whichever way, in a good way or a negative way. Was that an issue?
Yeah. So, growing up, I had to deal with people saying, "Oh, are you adopted, or did you have the thing that Michael Jackson had?" Which Michael Jackson had a condition called vitiligo, which is vastly different from albinism, but because of maybe the similarities in attitudes towards both conditions,
Yes.
both communities kind of, you know, tend to be kind of intermingled. But as far as my parents, they, I think so much of my upbringing was traumatic that I don't think that they ever addressed it directly, which kind of goes into the whole my journey of faith because as I mentioned, they were abusive. So we were attending church, but they were abusive at home. So
Mm.
that's very confusing.
Abusive physically, or just verbally, or both?
Physically, psychologically, as well as spiritually. So there were multiple layers. And so because of that, it was very confusing, you know, being in like elementary school. I'm like, well, you say Jesus loves me in Sunday school, but you profess to be a Christian and this is how you're treating me and my brother at home. So there's a disconnect somewhere. The other disconnect was, well, I'm going to church with grandma occasionally, and she seems to live a little differently than y'all. So there's a breakdown in definitions or something. And so I was about 7 or 8 years old when I started really like picking up on that. And at age 8, I was like, God, you know, this whole Christian thing, if it looks like what they're doing, I don't want no parts of it. And the first time I ever heard the audible voice of God, he was like, don't punish a perfect God because of imperfect people.
Oh, I love that. Wait, what age was that?
8 years old.
So,
Yeah. And
and
I
so,
was telling
and
someone the other
so, go into that a little bit. So, you were dreaming, sleeping, or walking, or how did
I
that
was
come
awake.
about?
I was praying and I was like, yeah, before I jump into this, I need to let you know something's not adding up. And so that was the discussion that we had. And a few weeks later, I placed saving faith in Jesus Christ with
At
my
8 years
grandmother
old.
at 8 years old. And so, mind you, now this is going to sound strange, but having been raised in an environment where my parents weren't living what they claimed to believe, and then coming into faith, distinct from that, put me in an interesting position to develop a relationship with God for myself that wasn't based on anybody else's representation of Him. And so from that point on, even I began to experience like the abuse that I was navigating differently. Like instead of going into despair, I would get songs and inspiration. That's why when people
Oh
are
my
like, "How long
goodness.
you been writing songs?" and I'm like, literally most of my life, because one of the punishments that my mom would give us, aside from beating us, was we had to copy whole books of the Bible by hand, most of the time in cursive. I'm legally blind, and most Bible fonts are not readable for me. So I don't know. I think the pressure of the moment and like, you know, not wanting to be abused any further was like motivation for me to try to do the best I could. And so they gave
For
my brother
sure, for sure.
they gave my brother Proverbs, which has 31 chapters. They gave me the Book of Psalms, which is the longest book in the Bible.
No, I don't even
Um,
mean to laugh, but that's just crazy
yeah,
for real.
yeah, they gave me Psalms, the longest book in the Bible, and then they also would give us like whole letters of like the Encyclopedia Britannica to copy to. And so you have this convergence of what could have been used to deter me from scripture learning and a love of words actually kind of fostered it. So I'm sitting here doing my little punishment, copying, you know, scriptures, and then I'd get inspiration and hear melodies in my head. And so at the same time, my grandmother would like kind of purchase those little toy pianos and guitars. Um,
Yes.
and this is when I learned I had an ear, because I would just, like I said, I'm already getting songs and melodies. And so now I have something to express that further and accompany those songs and melodies. And so now I start writing songs, like full on songs. Some of them were nonsensical. Some of them like had depth to them. My brother remembers the ones that are nonsensical, and he does not fail to remind me of those at all. And so you see kind of like that lay the foundation while I'm dealing with all these other things. And
Yes.
so for me, my journey of faith has been learning to rely on God as my father throughout different seasons of understanding him more, understanding life, navigating very heavy things at times. Like I said, foster care. The whole reason I ended up in foster care is because my father sexually abused me after my biological mom passed away in 2010 of brain cancer. And so he kind of went into what I could describe as a psychosis. And so from that sexual abuse, I ended up pregnant, ended up in DSS custody. And luckily, I was able to remember my grandmother's phone number, because that was back when you memorized them. And she was able to be our guardian in spite of that situation. And so became pregnant as a result. And when you're in DSS custody, they make, as a minor especially, they make all the decisions for you. So next thing I know, I'm being, flown or taken to Georgia to have a court-ordered abortion. So that's throwing me into further
Court ordered.
court-ordered. So as in, I had no say-so at the age of 13. And so I'm navigating all that. I come back to North Carolina. They gave me like a couple weeks to heal, and then I'm being thrust into middle school. And then as I'm getting ready to matriculate, it was found out that the outgoing principal was being ousted for whatever reason, and unrightfully held me back. And so now I'm being put into this situation where there's all these factors that I can't control happening to me all at once. And so that's what leads me to attend this school, by the grace of God, that we found, called High School Ahead Academy, that allows you to catch up to your rightful grade by teaching you both 7th and 8th grade at the same time. And it's only 100 students, and by the grace of God, they approved me and I got in. And every other teacher at that school was a believer. So here you have one of the darkest times of my life, and God put me in an incubator of faith. Very intentionally. So yeah,
that's how he does it.
Yes,
He will surprise us with the people he puts around us in the situations to help us flourish.
absolutely. And so in that environment, I got more opportunities to share my art, did poetry and spoken word pieces before the school board, continuing to serve and do speaking engagements and advocate and all those things. And so, yeah, that was my part of my journey as well. Part of that, what fed that hatred of people and distrust of people. But my faith in Christ began to flourish, and that I couldn't stay in that state for long. And the more that I stepped out and did the hard things, the more that I was empowered in those things. And I was in therapy during this time as well. And my therapist would see particular gifts that I would have. And even in the treatment process, allow me to express myself through my art and my gifts. So you've got all these points happening and converging over time, which eventually has contributed to where I am today. So,
Oh my gosh, Maya, one never knows another person's struggle. And the old expression is, don't speak on my life until you've taken a mile in my shoes. Now
yeah.
that takes an overused old expression and kind of changes it a bit, but is a true thing to see the journey you've already been on. What I'm very curious is, what was the first song that you wrote that you feel you can present to us that would signify that time of your life?
Yeah. Like a song that I wrote back then, or a present song?
It could it could be a song you wrote back then that's descriptive of that time, or
Yeah.
I'm giving two options. If a song that is recent that you wrote that gives the story to those times, whichever one you see fit, that really gives us an insight to that time in your life.
Yeah. So there was a song, and it's crazy. I haven't thought about this song in ages, so it's crazy that it's coming back to my memory right now. And so I wrote
If you
this
don't
song.
mind,
Yeah. Let's see if I remember the chords. How about that?
I've been looking forward to this, sister.
And I don't think anybody's ever heard this song, so this is an exclusive.
Okay.
See, you are the potter and I am the clay. Mold my will to yours every day, 'cause it's your and not mine, and your ways are divine. And I'm spinning on your potter's wheel. Oh, I'm spinning on your potter's wheel. And so I wrote that when I was in middle school, actually. And
Oh, my
right
goodness.
after the culmination of all this stuff happening, and I was like, well, in scripture, I'm reading about how God molds us into these vessels through us being clay, and He's the potter. And
Yes.
in order for me to interpret that, a lot of pottery has what we would call imperfections, or chinks in the armor, so to speak. And for me, I was like, well, I've got all this in my story that I'm currently facing, but yet I'm seeing God give me opportunity after opportunity and putting really strategic people in my life, from social workers to educators to my guardian ad litem. And so I couldn't help but feel like I was being molded, even though I was dealing with so much. And so that's where that song came from.
And it's called Potter's Field.
Potter's Wheel. And I, again, like that was the extent of the song, and I would just repeat that and encourage myself. And later, when I learned how to play guitar, the tail end of freshman year of high school, I was able to put chords to it.
What age were you when you first performed in front of people?
Ooh, I was really young because my grandmother, she, make no mistake about it, she would give us every opportunity to be in church plays. There was this church, she was a president of Sunday school at a church that she used to attend. And the way they would do it is everybody would show up to church, and then they would break out into groups for Sunday school. So even adults had Sunday school at the same time the kids were. And so what we would do is, once everybody's lesson was over, we would come back into the sanctuary, and the bishop at the time would always say, hey, does any of the young people want to share what they learned? So my first exposure to being in front of people publicly were in those moments of sharing what I comprehended from the lesson. As I began to sing, my grandmother and my aunt would kind of help foster the singing gift. They would also provide opportunities for me to sing. So I was in the youth choir, but I also got to be in the senior choir right up under next to my grandmother. And then I also got to be in the adult choir. And so the more they began to help cultivate that gift of singing, as you can imagine, you can't sing and not be given opportunities, especially in the Black church at that point in time. And so for me, yeah, it's hard for me to remember like a social event, a family reunion, or something of that nature where I wasn't like, sing, Mayia, sing, go ahead and sing. And so there was a lot of opportunities to do that, and to in some cases do that from an outreach perspective with my cousins and family as well. So
Now, I'm curious. You have such a swag to your style, and There's a movement in the way that you take notes and you make them groove into your voice. And it's so rare to see an artist do that. I love that, because in anything I've seen you sing, you are already in the letters and you're going these corners and the notes that they take. I just love that. So did you notice that you had that ability? Was that something you noticed, or am I mentioning that first to you? Is it something that other people have told you, or did you see yourself in a vibe kind of situation with your sound and your style?
Yeah, you're probably one of the few people that have asked me. So I've had someone mention it before, not as eloquently, but they've mentioned it before. Um, and so I tell people, like, what you hear is what happened when I hit record. So because I was
Oh,
in
I like
foster
that.
care, um, I was able to go to college essentially for free. So between having a disability and foster care, my entire college education was paid for, no debt. Praise God. But with that, I was very frugal with my student refund check. But one thing I wanted to do was get studio time. But studio time is expensive, so I'm looking at options, and I happened to talk to my advisor, and he was like, "Well, you can actually get like a music software, and you can do it at home." And I was like, "You can record at home?" And so I do my research, and I find they're called DAWs, Digital Audio Workstation, and I'm looking at all these from Logic to FL Studio, and I land on PreSonus Studio One. And so I began to just go all in and learn what I could and start getting familiar with my voice in terms of recording, because your recorded voice sounds a little different. And there's always, everybody has like a degree to which when they hear their voice played back, it's like, oh, I don't know about that. So like you have to adjust to that too. And so from 2018 to 2020, nobody ever heard anything that I recorded or created because I kept it to myself. So it was like this incubation period of learning my voice and kind of just rolling with that. And so when I began to put out music, my affinity for beats that I've leased or listened to, or even the few beats that I've self-produced, like that's just what happened. I have a background in jazz. I have a background in like CCM worship. I have a background in Southern like gospel and like country. So like all those things kind of came together. And so from a musicianship perspective, I have a strong affinity for major sevenths and minor sevenths and the occasional diminished seventh thrown in there. And so like,
Can you give us an example? Give our audience an
yeah.
example of
So
those differing levels.
yeah, so a major seventh um sounds like, I feel like it embodies jazz. Whereas a minor seventh, like it has a different tinge to it, right? And
Yes,
so when
yes.
you bring those together, it creates the foundation for what we hear in R&B, in gospel, in neo soul, in jazz. And depending on what style of classical music you listen to, it lays the foundation for that as well. And so you get like things of that nature. Even one of my favorite
How would
songs,
that how
huh?
would that go with the song? What would be a good example of a song that did that kind of
Yeah, I was just about to demonstrate. So let's see what key I want to sing in today. So I have a song from my first album that was entitled Out of My Own Way. This song is called Better Than I Do. And I love it. It's mostly made up of 3 minor seventh chords. And so I'll play it real quick. I can't hide it. I can't fight it. My God, you know me better than I do. That's why I'm gonna put my trust in you. See, my own understanding don't amount to much, and my lofty opinions can't even touch the width of your omnipotence, the grandeur of your presence, yeah. And so when you hear,
Oh, hold on, we got to pause for that. That was
yeah,
dope, little sis.
thank you.
I love that.
Thank you. So when you hear a minor seventh, for me, it evokes a certain level of emotion, right? Most of your
Yes.
Motown ballads, a lot of artists like Michael Jackson and Prince, when you listen to some of their biggest hits that hit you in your emotions, they often are wrought with minor sevenths, and maybe there's this crescendo of a moment that might transition into something lighter that lets you know there's like this resolution. And so a lot of my music, because it's telling my story, there are those points of like, yes, this thing did happen, or maybe I'm struggling with this, but then at the same time, I don't leave you there because Jesus didn't leave me there. Like there's some hope or redemptive aspect in each one of my songs, because that's how my story is structured as well.
Mm. Now, who were some of your influences in your music?
Yeah, so I break influences down by several things. So musicianship, uh, singer or songwriter, and then instrumentation. So musicianship, hands down, I love Count Basie, George
Oh,
Benson, Wes Montgomery, who else? Corey Henry, Duke
give us a
Ellington.
little sample of those cats that you like that you wrote.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. So a similar blend of all those things, I would say, would be In Palm of Your Hand. Now I don't play that one by guitar, but I can do it a cappella. Let's see. When emotions are shifting like waves of a rolling tide, my place in you permanent, forever solidified. I will not be shaken, 'cause you're my foundation. I'll trust and believe that you've got me. You've got me in the palm of your hand, and every day you give me grace to stand again. I know you've got me in the palm of your hand. I'll seek you first, and then I'll find everything I need in peace of mind. I know no matter what I face, you've got me in the palm of your hand.
I love it. I love it.
Thank you. And so,
And and yes.
well, I was gonna say, and for me, like all those influences kind of create the ear that I have, where when I'm writing, I hear full bands, I hear like the full instrumentation, and that comes a lot from like the Count Basies that laid the groundwork for the Corey Henrys and the PJ Mortons and things of that nature.
Who are some of the contemporary artists you really admire or appreciate?
Yeah, like I said, PJ Morton is one of my favorites. One, I love his voice and vocal tone and songwriting, but he is a very like gifted musician and composer as well. And his ability to collaborate, and in those collaborations complement the artists that are featured on his projects very well while staying true to his particular sound. Um, is just very unique, and I enjoy listening to what he puts out. His Christmas album is one of my favorites. His and Ella Fitzgerald. Um,
Oh,
Another person that I like he's a contemporary Christian artist, and he's been a songwriter, ooh, going on maybe 40 years. His name is Stephen Curtis Chapman, and I always appreciated how he talked about very faith-driven things, but in an honest way. Because I think sometimes people can be like, "Oh, God will work it out," but what does it look like to say that in the context of your story? You know what I'm saying?
Yes,
So,
yes.
um,
That's such a valuable point. That's
yeah,
such a valuable point. Yes,
yeah. Like I know he'll work it out, but tell me how that worked out for you, because that's what is encouraging, right? It's not enough for me to
it
tell
is.
you what to do or not do. Sometimes, the Bible says we overcome by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony, which means you got to tell your testimony. That's how you overcome, and
Yes.
that's how other people overcome. And so I love
Really
stories
quick,
like
let's tag on that if you don't mind.
yeah,
Really quick, like how you shared your testimony today is the prime example of what I feel we're supposed to be doing,
yeah,
called to, because by the words and the experience that you had and how God has brought you through it, I think that's extremely important, and that is the sharing of our testimony that gives others the hope. And so you couldn't have said it any better. I total agreement.
yeah. And I'm sure working in media, like stories are often what have more impacts than data
Yes,
sometimes. Data might
yes.
help tell the story, but stories kind of lead the charge in terms of people making a change or experiencing a transformation in thought process or the way that they function.
I totally agree. I couldn't agree more. Now I'm going to ask you for a hard one because you are young. So I come from old school gospel too.
Mhm.
Gospel keynotes, Shirley Caesar,
Yep.
even when Aretha Franklin used to be Christian, then Mississippi Mass Choir, Georgia
Yep.
Mass Choir. Those are
Yep.
some of the background of gospel music that I really love and appreciate. And I
Yep.
feel like you are a perfect blend of all of that in your styles. But I'm
Yep.
curious, any of those sound familiar to you? And give us a
All of them.
sample of some, okay, give us a sample of some of that old time gospel music that was in the black churches, and even, well, maybe just even saying apostolic churches. Our worship style tends to be a little more doom, 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 and that's a part
Yeah.
of our journey too. So I'm
I'm a
curious, what for you is an example of that?
I'll preface this by saying gospel music and Christian music as far back as the 1930s on up is what I'm influenced by. So
Oh,
that's the
good.
Mahalia Jackson. There's the gospel
Yes.
quartet music, Mighty Clouds of Joy, Keith Wonder, Bud
Oh my
Johnson.
goodness, Mighty Clouds of Joy. What you
Yeah.
know about that? You're too young for
Camp
that. You're too
spirituals.
young for that, Maya.
Then you got and that's where being raised by my grandmother comes in, right? Because you've got the
Oh,
Vanessa
okay,
Bell
makes sense.
Armstrongs, the Shirley Caesars, the
Oh,
Clark sisters. Then you come up through the 80s and the 90s with Hezekiah Walker and his group,
okay.
converging with Kurt Franklin and his group, but also you got Commission, Trinity 5-7, Virtue, Dawkins and
You know your
Dawkins.
stuff, young lady. You
Yeah,
know your
so like
stuff.
then you've got like the blend of Christian music with the Gaither vocal band. So you've got like the Toby Max, and then you've got like the Stephen Curtis Chapmans. It's a whole blend. Michael W. Smith. So for me, like one of my favorite songs when people are like, "You don't know nothing about that girl," when I break it down, how I got over,
Oh,
how
let's
I
do it.
got
Do it.
over. My soul looks back and wonder
Oh,
how I got over. Just as soon as I see Jesus, the man who died for me, the man that bled and suffered, oh, he hung on Calvary. And I'm going to thank him for how he kept me. I'm going to thank him for how he never left me. Thank my God Almighty. So, like things like that. Or you go
oh,
into,
wait! Don't stop! Don't stop! Don't stop!
I'm going to
That
make a pivot. So, you got Mahalia Jackson, and then you go into one of my favorites. All of my life, I've never known you to fail. You remain the same, and wonderful is your name. All of my life, I've never known you to fail. Lord, you remain the same, and wonderful is your name. You woke me up this morning, started me on my way. You put the food on my table and the joy in my day. Or then you brought the sunshine in my life. You are the lifeline that saved my life. Since then, I felt a change. You have made such a difference in my life. I'm a witness that Jesus, he will make a difference in your life. I'm a witness that Jesus, he will make a difference in your life. So I can go on and on and on through the
You
chronological
know what?
influences.
And I heard all those influences. I heard the Mahalia. I heard all those influences. That's why, to me, you were. It's really going to be challenging to reach the heights that of the diversity of your voice. I heard all of those styles. You are definitely an aficionado of those styles. I was ready to still. I thought I had to go get my different church shirt for the other but you definitely have carved out how your own voice impacts that, and that's some of what I greatly felt from hearing your stylized versions of some of those influences. In particular, when you changed it from, which I should have stopped talking, because when you were doing the older gospel, I get in trouble for that sometimes, sis. You got to tell me, Lady Maya.
But
But
it does something to you, right? Like even when I think about
yes,
one of my
yes.
other influence was Mary growing up, right?
Oh yeah.
I can't tell
Take
you
my shoes
how
off
many
so I can
times,
dance. Take my shoes off so I can dance. Take my shoes off so I
right?
can dance. Right.
I can't tell you how many times my aunt and grandmother had me sing repeatedly. I just can't give up now. Like it
How
is
does that
burned
go?
in my brain because of how much they taught it to me and had me sing it.
Give us a little sample of that one.
I just can't give up now. Come too far from where I started from. Nobody told me the road would be easy, and I don't believe he's brought me this far to leave me.
Oh yeah, I remember that in my youth. That was another one. You know what? I'm curious how you thought about this, because some of this was before your time. There was a transition, and I think this was a pinnacle point with Mary, just before Kirk Franklin really got kind of streaming, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But where gospel music did make that shift.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they, in this particular song, was showing some of how the dynamics of the music was changing. Mm-hmm. Now, in your study of music, would you agree to that was part of the era of some of how that was going in a different direction? Because I think we've come full circle now, and I think you're part of that. This other young man who I've been talking to, I think his name is Tony, but I think you artists encompass all of those styles now. But is that where you saw it start to change as well?
Yeah, there's definitely different eras of music, and I was just talking to a friend of mine who's a producer, because with my third project I'm releasing in April and doing an album release event and whatnot. It's inspired by hymns, but they're gospel neo soul takes on classic hymns. And so when I've been kind of talking to people about how this came about, most people don't realize that, very often we kind of have this cancel out mentality in music where like, oh, here comes the next wave. Let's cancel this out. Not realizing that
Yes,
everything
you're so
builds.
right. You're so right, sis. Yep, you're so
and,
right.
and everything kind of builds a foundation in and of itself. So you had, spirituals and classical music converging. At the turn of the century, which laid the groundwork for ragtime and Dixieland jazz to come about, right? Which also laid the groundwork for blues and what we know to be the foundations of gospel music. So that's where those Mahalia Jacksons come in once you get into
Yes.
like the civil rights music movement. But then with the advent of Earth, Wind, and Fire and Motown and funk, here comes, okay, we've got the same gospel message with different utilization of instrumentation that was either previously
Yes.
available or newly adapted because of technological advancements. So as technology transitions a certain way, so did some of the sound, right? Even the Clark sisters, if you listen to like their conversations that they've talked about
Yes.
when they've been interviewed
Yes.
about how they integrated maybe some of the same feels as Stevie Wonder. And they were like, was that intentional? They were like, we just liked how it sounded, and this is what happened, you know? And that's why,
And
as
it
an
caused a
artist,
good controversy. It caused a
yeah,
great
it
deal of
did.
controversy in the church.
It did. And so that's why, like I tell people, like as an artist and musician, I'm careful about what I digest, because whatever you digest will come out creatively, for better or for worse.
Yes.
And then
Yes.
after that, of course, we see the advent of hip hop in the 80s and how gospel rap became a thing. So I think sound is a vehicle to communicate a message. And I think for me, all of those eras of music, including choir music, Brooklyn Tabernacle Choir, Mississippi Mass, all those choirs, the Mary Marys, all of those people have laid the foundation for what I do. Even there's a gentleman who's a phenomenal artist by the name of Sean C. Johnson. He laid the groundwork. He walked so that I could run in the area of gospel neo soul. He was one of the first people that I heard do it like well. And did I intend to end up in that lane of things? No. But like that inspiration, the culmination of all those influences is kind of what happened for me. And so I think I'm in an interesting day and time as an artist where God happened to call me during a day and age where technology has allowed this kind of throwback sound
Yes, this
mixed
is such a
with,
good way to describe it.
yeah,
Yes.
throwback sound to kind of pay homage to the past while also making it sonically relevant for those who are listening. Um, and I just happened to be called during that particular era of music. It'll be interesting to see as, time goes on, how music will continue to change. But I definitely think it's less about canceling out what came before, and it's more about in a way, kind of carrying through what has come before me.
I think that's very well put. I think in considering today's times,
Mm-hmm.
what we're going through and this overwhelming sense and barrage of things happening, I'm
Mm-hmm.
very curious as to, because I do notice this wave of there is a throwback sound and style to gospel music of late, and I see that it references more biblically some of
Mm-hmm.
the return to old time gospel in that sense, and I find it fascinating that we're on that pathway. So I'm curious myself in watching the trends of music.
Yeah, for sure. Even
Now I'm
in I was gonna say,
go ahead.
even in the lane that I'm in, I collaborate and I'm in the Christian hip hop space as well as the Christian R&B space, and a lot of the framework of sound has changed to reflect the early 2000s from a production standpoint. So it's been interesting to see, like, there's periods of time where there's almost like this progression, and then there's like a progression that meets kind of like what came before it from a production perspective as well.
I think that's so well put. And I think you embody a great deal of that. It's so, you really have capsulized what I've seen myself. And I'm just enthralled by your understanding of that. It's crazy. I really find that so fascinating. I'm very curious, or before my other question, what is the name of your next project? And what's the date of that coming out again?
Yeah, so y'all are very fortunate in that I just got the CDs in because I'll be selling that
Oh,
now.
yeah.
So it is entitled "Take Me Back," and so it
After
kind of,
Edward Hawkins, after the Hawkins, Take Me Back the Song.
that is it. It's the title is meant to evoke that memory because it's designed to, one, take us back to the gospel, but also take us back. It plays on traditional church imagery, the hymns and everything. So even if you look at the cover, I designed it after a hymnal. I do all my graphic
Yes.
design work for those who don't know. And so um, every aspect of the imagery that I've put out is 90s based. So even the filters that I've edited my content with, I got choir robes, filmed some things in a church. Like,
Oh my gosh.
this is rooted in traditional church imagery. And so
Ah,
why it's called Take Me Back. But it's also called Take Me Back is because God really, with this project, begin to bring reconciliation in terms of my story and where I come from. I had my mom's side of the family that I wasn't aware of find me through me just being consistent on social media. And
yes.
so being
And
able to be in contact with them and learn about my roots from my mom and things of that nature, I found out that she was a part of a singing group. when she was in her late teens. And my mom's best friend sent me a picture, and the choir robe looks like the choir robe that I've been using in my content. So all that started converging and meeting like uncles and relatives I didn't even know that I had. And so God bringing reconciliation to my story is also how this plays into that project.
I'm curious if we can kind of circle back to that. How are things with your parents today?
My biological mother passed away in 2010 of brain cancer, but on her deathbed, she asked for forgiveness. And I was like, yeah, I forgive you. Now healing is a process. So
Yes.
it would only be like in recent years that I realized the gravity of what she put us through. So that provided another opportunity to be like, okay, I need God's guidance in how to process this. And thankfully my kingdom family has been very integral in that process. And as far as my biological father, he was released from prison a few years ago, I believe, and I haven't had contact with him, but he's someone that I continue to pray for, and because I believe no one is without redemption. I do a lot in the area of
Amen.
prison ministry as well. So which is a testament to God's goodness, because like the fact that I would be serving, like I'll be getting blue card training here to lead worship in prisons in a few weeks. The fact that that's a part of my testimony is only a work that the Lord could do, because yeah, it was a very hard place to deal with, especially because a lot of times your earthly father can unfortunately impact how you see God as your father. And so but as God has continued to make me whole, it's given me a fresh perspective of, you know, what redemption can look like and how God can write your story when you are just open, even to facing the hard things. So I don't know what's in store in terms of my father, but I'm open to what God has in store. And, you know, I continue to pray that he would not miss his destiny in Christ. Yeah.
And that's well said. That's well said. Now, please repeat the name of the album that is
Yes.
about to be released and where people can reach you at and hear more. I highly encourage anyone to do so.
Yes. So the new album is entitled Take Me Back. It releases April 17th. I'm having an album release event April 11th here in Raleigh, North Carolina. So if you would love to come to that, follow me at Mayia Warren, MAYIAWARREN on all platforms. And you'll see like the link in my bio to the event and all the things. It's a free event. So I'm excited to spend some time with people who have been blessed by the music so far and get to share with y'all this experience. And part of the funding for this project was made possible from an arts grant that I received and applied for through the Greensboro Council, the Greensboro Arts Council here in North Carolina. And so that helped tremendously. And then the rest of the funding for production was donated by a friend of mine named Janet Perez.
Well, that's fantastic. Can you take us out with a little bit of Take Me Back?
Yeah, let's see. Let's see what song on here. All right. So I will do Pass Me Not. This single
Oh, I
was
like
already
that.
released.
That's my jam right there. That's my jam.
All right. Pass me not, oh gentle Savior. I pray you hear my humble cry. I know a broken and a contrite heart you won't despise. So please remind me that in the valley you won't pass me by. Who am I to think that I'm exempt from suffering? After all the things that you had to endure. Regardless of the times, I find your presence comforting. Yet in the thick of it, my memory grows short. So help my unbelief, oh Lord. Anchor me into your word, 'cause I don't wanna drift away on a sea of my emotions. Lord, be the center of this testimony that you're
Hold on,
building.
hold on, hold on, hold on. So that is one of my songs right there. That is one of the ones that got me so enthralled with your voice and your beauty.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It definitely has been a song that I you never know how it's gonna land, and it seems to really be a song that's been connecting with everyone that has heard it so far.
There's a vibe to it in your swag, and then the scenery is so beautiful. And I can't imagine the harmonization and just the tonality. There's so many things that are so spiritually inviting to it that now I don't get me wrong, because I've already been in love with your other songs too. I just got to say that when I sent that one to my family, it just slayed everyone. So I'm just so captivated. I got to tell you, as we're ending this portion of this, for my audience, I've labeled her the Princess Songstress because it is, in my years of being in the music industry and having a nightclub, also being raised in the church, I have rarely found a voice that so easily allows to be filled by the Spirit of the Lord and gift us with that shared talent. And she is one of these shared talents. I highly encourage you to check out Mayia Warren, my Princess Songstress and new little sister, who I have just been so blessed by the talent and skills, and her new album coming out. Please check out her Instagram and give her a follow and give her words of encouragement. Lady Mayia, Princess Songstress, I can't thank you enough for being on my program today. It has been truly a blessing and an honor.
Thank you for having me. It's always an honor to be able to share my story and connect with such amazing people like yourself. So thank you.
You're definitely going to come back. I'd like us to do more of a little tiny desk kind of thing where just 20 minutes is just you playing music. And then
Absolutely.
maybe we'll get into some other topics of some of your experiences, because I think your journey has been an inspirational one. And I'd really like to, I know a lot of the young ladies I've grown up as my little sisters in church, and some of the women, young ladies I worked with in my youth work will be inspired by your story. You've been a blessing and an honor. It's been an honor to serve you. So thank you.
Thank you.
Princess Songstress Mayia Warren, we look forward to having you come back. As I always end the programs, the Loveolution is the revolution that we want, and Lady Mayia Warren is a part of that Loveolution. Thank you for the gift that she has shared with us today. I am looking forward to you all joining us again on Seth Guru Podcast at Maker's Bar, where we're creating 1 million leaders today for tomorrow. God bless, spread love, and give more open arms to embracing the thought of God in your life. Thank you so much. Lady Mayia, we check in with you later.
All right. Bye-bye.
Oh, bye-bye, sweetheart.